Hello everyone, welcome to Basically Neda Reads. I'm Neda and this is my February wrap-up and March TBR. So in February it was very busy for me, and also I got sick, so I couldn't do my wrap-up. So now I'm doing my February wrap-up and March TBR all together. So let's start with my February wrap-up. I read 5 books and here they are. The first book that I read was The Warrior by Stephen Aryan. This is the second book of the Quest for Heroes duology, and I had started it in January, at the end of January, and I finished it early February. It is a journey story from a hero, and this is the second quest for him, basically. I can't really say much because then I will give away the story. It's just very character driven. It was a bit different from the first book, where this one has more creatures and more like a fantastical setting, whereas the first one was just a normal like quest and those kind of things. You can actually go into this without having to have read The Coward, I think, because there isn't much about The Coward in this one. There was a few like things that were from there, but you can still read this one and like read The Warrior and still understand the story. So yeah, it was good. I just wanted the plot to go faster, and everything was just way too slow for me. It was very character driven, and yeah, I gave it a 3-star rating. It was okay. It was a midpoint for me. It wasn't like a big deal. I didn't find it that big of a deal. So yeah. And then the second book that I read, finished in February, was Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is a witchy horror story where the main 2 characters are a mother and a daughter, and they are living in this town where there's a murder, and the mother is framed for the murder because she's a witch, and they have to leave this town in order to escape claim of this mother to be a murderer. And they move to this other town so the mother can marry this older, rich, wealthy gentleman, and the story goes from there. It is very character driven, based on relationships, and not really about a lot about the magic. I mean, there was some magic, but it wasn't as much as I wanted. And I just wasn't really into the story. I didn't like it. I just wanted more of the magic parts, and yeah, it wasn't a good T. Kingfisher for me, so I gave it a 3-star rating. So the third book that I finished in February was Born a Crime: Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. And this was given to me, like, this was a prompt that was given to me by Tim from Timberbridge Reads. He does these like Disney theme reads books. Then he asked everybody what was their favorite Disney movie when they were younger. So I said one of my favorite movies was The Lion King, and he gave me the prompt for it, which is to read a book in set in Africa, and I picked this one because it's set in South Africa and it's a memoir, and I really enjoyed this one. Like you can, this memoir is very good. He writes it very well. You can actually see his charm and charismatic personality come through in his writing, and I learned a lot about the South African history because he goes into details about that and how it affected his childhood and upbringing. And yeah, it's just something that I didn't know that much about, so I read about it and it was interesting. The only part I didn't like about this book was Trevor Noah tends to repeat the childhood repeats that he does, like when he was trying to get something and he would like try to annoy his parents and he would just say the same thing over and over, and he does that in this book. So there are multiple of those and it was just not fun to read. It was just annoying. After the third one, it was just annoying. I get that he was trying to make a point, but we get it after the first two. We get it, and there's no need to have like 10 of those in there. That's just a preference. Maybe other people will not have been bothered by it. So yeah, I gave it a 4-star. I would totally recommend it to everybody. It's something different that most North Americans don't really know about. So if you want to read it, I would really recommend it. The fourth book that I finished in February was The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Mayer. This is based on a true story. There was a car porter, a Black Canadian car porter whose story was picked up by Suzette, and she made it into a story. So this is based on his experience being a car porter in a train that goes from west of Canada to east of Canada. And it was interesting. This is like the 1800s of during Canada's 1800s, and it's a black man working on a train, and you see how he gets treated by other people. It is written in third person. There's no dialogue. It's just not something I would pick up normally. I just picked up because it sounded interesting and I like the historical part of it. I was just wanting the story to move on a little faster. There's a lot more about the character than the actual story. If you want to learn more about how he lives his life on that train and what hardships he goes through, then yes, I would pick this one up. But I think I should have picked up the actual historical book that is written for like about this person than this, because this wasn't for me. I gave it a 3-star. It was okay, it just wasn't for me. I did learn a bit about it, so that was good. Then the last book that I read in February was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is a classic dystopian fantasy. It is written in a diary form. It is the main character's diary, and we learn about how the plot goes and the story by reading her diary. It's very based on her point of view, and you get a lot of her hardships and her life. Just very character driven in my point of view. It just wasn't what I wanted. I thought there would be more of like how other people lived, as well as this one. It is a classic, so I do recommend it if anybody wants to start with like a fantasy and they're not very into fantastical things, but they like the dystopia. This has more dystopia than fantasy. So, and go into it knowing that this is very dark. This is really dark. So yeah, it's just hardship and darkness. And yeah, so those were the books that I read in February. And now I'm going to talk about all the books that I want to read in March, my March TBR. So the first book that I'm going to read in March is One Dark Window by Rachel Gilly. This one finally came from the Livy app for me, so I'm going to read this one. I got the audiobook for it, and it's very popular, so I finally got it. And it is about a girl who is possessed. There's mist in the magic is in the mist, and she is possessed by a magical creature. And in order to get rid of this magical monster creature thing, she has to team up with this captain who will help her go through this journey to find these 12 Providence cards in order to cure herself from this monster. It is a romantasy gothic book. So I guess I don't really need to say much about this one. I think everyone has heard about this one. So yeah, that's the first one. The second book that I'm going to read in March is going to be To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monica Blackgoose. This is a indigenous story. There's a indigenous teenager who has a dragon, a dragon egg hatched, and they imprint whatever they do, and she goes to a dragon academy to learn more about how to train her dragon. And yeah, it's I think it's in the 1800s, high society kind of thing, and she is like going into a boarding school basically for dragon riders, a high school for dragon riders. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. And then the third book that I want to read in March is Trader's Blade by Sebastian Ducastel. This is the first book in the Great Coats series, and it's about the Great Coats. They're a group of armies, kings, heroes kind of thing. It's high fantasy and adventure story, so I'm going to pick this one up. And then the last book that I want to pick up in March is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Niveau. This is a fantasy novel, novella kind of thing, about women and feminism in China and politics and marriage and those kind of things. So yeah, those were all the books that I read in February and going to read in March. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of them. What did you think of them? What are you going to read in March? And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!